Hello everyone, this is my presentation. My title is Spotify and the Podcast Takeover. The first thing I want to talk about is the main focus and platform will be Spotify. My main focus for this presentation will be the extreme takeover of podcasts, and I will be taking a closer look at one specific podcast which I believe has the most influence among the rest, and that one takes marketing to a whole new level. Of course, I'm talking about the Joe Rogan Experience, one of the largest podcasts in the world, with what I believe to be the most loyal fan base that continues to grow each and every day. I also want to add, just before I go to this slide, that I won't only be talking about Joe Rogan's podcast. I'll also be talking about his close friends who are also business partners with him. All of the following are all stand-up comedians. So, Spotify's influencer marketing status. If you're not familiar with how Spotify uses its influencer marketing products, it does so in two ways. The first way is to play advertisements in between songs or podcasts. However, the second and I think more effective way is they actually do ads directly through creators. For example, Joe Rogan, prior to his podcast, will read scripts from companies about the services and goods they want to sell. They also send Joe himself free samples, allowing him to have his own opinions on the products prior to speaking about them openly on the podcast. This is a much more effective way of marketing on this platform and has worked really well. For Spotify, it gives the creators extra money directly from the companies who want their products marketed towards Joe's audience. Spotify's opportunities and challenges. Let's first take a look at the opportunities of this sort of social media strategy. The first and most important opportunity is that creators have a chance to sponsor products they enjoy and truly recommend to others, meaning that their niche of followers will end up buying those products more often than not. Another great opportunity is that the influencers themselves are able to make more money directly from any of these sponsors, and no matter what, Spotify will still be making ad revenue from the viewers who watch the podcast. Some of the challenges that Spotify will end up having is, of course, the money going directly to the influencers isn't going directly to Spotify. However, they still do make plenty of money, as I said before, from viewership ads, and large podcasters bring a large audience. Another issue that Spotify itself cannot control is what sort of ads the influencers choose. Again, that's the influencer's choice. They can do data analytics on what they do think what products will work best with what niche of the podcaster that they're going to put ads on, and they can go about doing that to make extra money. It's incredibly important for Spotify to build strong relations with its largest content creators and cater to their needs. This established relationship benefits both the creators as well as Spotify. This ties closest towards Spotify's overall business, its main way of them gathering revenue through ads and viewership. Spotify's marketing objectives are clearly revenue-based, so allowing these podcasters to pick and choose who they sponsor benefits both parties. I'm going to be talking about these 5 influencers who are currently blowing up in the podcast industry and are also, some of them are successful actors as well as they are all successful stand-up comedians. I'm starting off first with Joe Rogan, then Bill Burr, Bert Kreischer, Ari Shaffir, and then Tom Segura. I'm going to be starting off with Joe Rogan. There's a reason I chose Joe for this list is because he's really great at marketing and sponsoring products. Not to mention his audience is extremely loyal and always follows through on brands he recommends. The reason that I chose Joe is also because Spotify made a deal with him to post exclusively on their platform instead of YouTube, which is where he originally posted. This clearly shows a motive for Spotify to get Joe on the platform, and they did a great job with that because ever since then they've been trending and blowing up in the podcast world. Second, I want to talk about Bill Burr. The reason I chose Bill Burr is due to his large social media presence, podcasts, and extreme influence. Like Joe Rogan, they both are stand-up comedians. They tend to do really well in their podcasts. This is another trend, but comedians tend to be really good at podcasts just because of their overall comedic relief in any sort of scenario they have. Again, Spotify noted that if they can get these stand-up comics like Bill Burr away from YouTube and onto their platform, they can become incredibly successful, which is basically what happened, and they ended up getting loads of new subscriptions for ad-free podcast listening. Bert Kreischer is probably one of the largest influencers I'm going to talk about. Bert is another great comic, also a podcast influencer. He has 2 podcasts, both are exclusively on Spotify. He's incredibly influential, stand-up comedian, has multiple shows, is an up-and-coming actor. Every social media account he has millions of followers, so his influence is truly massive. Spotify making relationships with him, again, benefits both parties greatly. He creates massive amount of views for any platform. Podcast influencer. He has 2 podcasts. Both are exclusively on Spotify. He's incredibly influential stand-up comedian, has multiple shows, is an up-and-coming actor. Every social media account he has millions of followers. So his influence is truly massive. Spotify making relationships with him, again, benefits both parties greatly. He creates massive amount of views for any platform that he tends to be on. Ari Shaffir, he's up and coming, so his following is not as large as the others. However, 500,000 followers on each individual platform is still ludicrous. So Ari Shaffir, again, is another stand-up comedian with a huge following, closely associated with the others, so that they're all really good friends. He also has a podcast on Spotify, and he's trending in the comedian world. Spotify was quick to pick him up, and all these super successful podcasters onto their platform allows Spotify to increase and continue to grow. Tom Segura, who's my personal favorite, is another super large influencer who is also a stand-up comedian with multiple podcasts that allows Spotify to make a quick deal with him in order to bring him and his large following to their platform. Each large podcaster they bring brings a new audience and more people to subscribe to become free from advertisements. So again, I'm trying to convey that the more people that Spotify brings in, the more people that want to listen to ad-free music and or ad-free podcasts will have to subscribe, which is bringing in huge revenue for Spotify. Again, those influencers are Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, Bert Kreischer, Ari Shaffir, and Tom Segura. Taking a closer look and analyzing each individual influencer, it is clear to me that from all these influencer success, that all these people I listed are real influencers. So again, it was asked of me to see which ones are real and which ones are fake. That these are all real influencers with some serious following, all with millions of followers on multiple social media accounts across numerous platforms. So they all have an enormous fan base. Again, going back to Joe Rogan does exclusive advertisements slightly after his introduction to whoever he's speaking with on his podcast. Joe always speaks his mind and he won't do sponsorships unless he's happy with the products those companies are making. Oftentimes, he loves to do deals with American-made products or companies involved with philanthropy. Joe has a large network of fellow stand-up comedians who also all have their own podcasts. They were the few that I mentioned before. Joe rarely cares for numbers and truly loves what he does rather than being focused on making money. Joe's following speaks for itself, and the numbers he pulls from Spotify alone is the reason he has a large contract with the company. Joe can promote whatever products he enjoys. Besides, there's no need to promote oneself if you're already a top online trender. So if you're very popular on social media, sometimes there's no need to promote yourself because trending pages will do that for you. Again, Bill Burr is the same exact way. Bill Burr is a large influencer on multiple platforms, but for obvious reasons I want to convey his podcast. He's similar to Joe, does his own advertisements on top of Spotify ads, and picks and chooses products he wants to talk about. Nobody says what's on their mind as well as he does. It's crystal clear that any products he endorses is his honest opinion. So he always just speaks truthfully about whatever product he's endorsing. Again, with a contract with Spotify, it's clear to see that he's a valuable asset and has have any products he chooses to endorse will sell like wildfire. His business is mostly comedic related, so the products don't exactly coincide with like comedy as a topic, but however, he truly is just honest and again picks and chooses the products he wants to run ads for. Bert Kreischer. Bert very well may be the most famous person I'm going to mention and has a vast following over a multitude of platforms. Again, I'll be talking about the Spotify and his two podcasts that are exclusively on Spotify, pardon me. He, like all the others, has his own advertisements and has a loyal fan base that nearly anything he mentions will be sold instantly. His fan base is incredibly supportive of him and live by his word. He speaks honestly about products and is extremely intelligent when it comes to marketing. He says how he feels about products for the best. He wants the best for his viewers. Bert can also care less about numbers. His network is vast enough. Again, the reason Spotify chose him for this deal is because of past success. It speaks for itself. Bert is extremely innovative and creative always makes his ads entertaining. Next up, we have Ari Shafir. Ari is another stand-up comedian with large audience and multiple millions of followers on separate platforms. He also has an exclusive deal with Spotify to do his podcast there. He does his own advertisements, is true and honest about each product, does the best to make the ads funny. Again, he isn't focused on numbers. Each person I've spoken about already has plenty of money, and they all do what they love. Judging by multiple deals, he has numerous platforms he works with, speaks for itself, and any of the products he tends to endorse sell very quickly. Again, he's creative, a great marketer, very intelligent, and witty. Lastly, we have Tom Segura. Tom is a stand-up comedian, has 2 podcasts, one solo, and one being with the other who I mentioned earlier, Bert Kreischer. Both extremely popular and do really well. They each do ads on each of the podcasts, and Spotify runs viewership ads. He's loyal to his fan base, and they reciprocate that energy. Anything he endorses and or advertises sells really well online and in stores. Multiple deals with multiple platforms shows proof that he's extremely successful and is a desirable aspect for any platform with podcasts. He's extremely intelligent, successful stand-up comedian, podcaster, as well as an author. He's creative and allows his ads to be entertaining, almost as if they are part of the podcast themselves. Back to this, I want to talk about Joe Rogan again. I want to show his Instagram. So clearly here you can see 859,000 likes on the post. That is ludicrous. So I just wanted to show his sort of social media following. Again, I provided a post from Joe's Instagram showing his vast reach. However, I can't show the advertisements due to copyright. That's going to be the same for the following. So again, Bill Burr, I have his Instagram linked. He has 2 million followers, a huge reach, and that's just on one platform. Coming down to Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer has around 2.3 million followers. Again, I can't show the podcast actual advertisements they run, but I can give an example of what they're like at the end. Ari Shafir has 500,000 followers, almost 600,000 now. Again, cannot show his things due to copyright reasons. Next, we have Tom Segura. His Instagram is 2 million followers. Tom is massive influencer, and again, I can't show the podcast ads. Recommendations for engaging with influencers. I already think Spotify is doing a really great job of adding top trenders to its list, making them partners. However, I do have some suggestions that will allow both parties to benefit. My first suggestion is to keep up with the trends. Spotify needs to understand and analyze trends in order to know what is currently trending. Doing this allows them to gain relations with top trenders really early and promotes both parties, benefiting both parties. I think the metric Spotify should look at is hyperlink clicks. This means that if the podcast description has hyperlinks for whatever products they run or they ran ads for, they just see how many viewers click on those ads, and then Spotify can figure out what podcasters get the most clicks when sponsoring a brand. These are my citations, and again, thank you. And as for the podcast, basically like what they do is like, let's pretend I'm Joe Rogan and I'm sponsoring Jimmy Dean's. He would say something along the lines of, welcome back to the Joe Rogan Experience. Today's first sponsor is Jimmy Dean's. I wake up every morning and have Jimmy Dean's breakfast. It's really good. It's nutritious. It's healthy. You can click the link in the description to get yours now today. And that would be a great example. Again, thank you so much, and